What a game. The Indiana Fever snap the New York Liberty's undefeated streak.
The word undeniable exists for a reason, and it applies to Caitlin Clark. She is just absolutely undeniable, and her return to the Indiana Fever showed it once again. It felt like a jolt of energy to the WNBA, obviously to the Indiana Fever, who...
The WNBA just made the most embarrassing mistake in sports history after Caitlin Clark returned from injury and absolutely demolished the defending champion Liberty with 32 points. Someone in a suit decided she needed a drug test 11 times. This season, apparently, the internet's reaction was swift, brutal, and absolutely hilarious. The league is now facing backlash they never saw coming. Do you think the WNBA is actually trying to sabotage their own biggest star, or are they just this incompetent by accident?
I'm gonna say it. Caitlin Clark is the best basketball player in the world. She's the best basketball player that I have ever seen. She is the difference maker. She is the needle mover. She is the face of basketball right now. It's really hard not to recognize the difference that she makes on the Indiana Fever, a team that was obviously struggling with playmaking, struggling with pacing, struggling with the things that make us want to watch. And she steps into that court, and in the first quarter, she made
Let's start with the facts because they're so ridiculous they sound made up. Caitlin Clark returns from a 5-game injury absence, drops 32 points on the defending champions, leads her team to a statement victory that snaps New York's undefeated streak, and her reward for this masterpiece performance is a mandatory drug test, the 11th one this season according to reports. For context, most WNBA players get tested 3 times during the regular season and once in the off-season.
And Cunningham is down behind the play, but they've got Caitlin Clark to fire away from 2 players with incredible...
In the WNBA office looked at Clark's stat sheet and apparently thought 32 points after missing 5 games? She must be on something. Illegal. Because obviously, talent, preparation, and being really good at basketball couldn't possibly explain her performance. It had to be performance-enhancing drugs, right? The social media reactions came fast and merciless. One user commented, she tested positive for goat blood, which honestly might be the most accurate drug test result in sports history. Another said they should drug test Scott Foster while they're at it, which is probably the most reasonable suggestion anyone's made regarding WNBA officiating all season. But my personal favorite response came from someone who said they should have done a DNA test instead to see if she's really human. Because let's be honest, what Clark did against the Liberty looked supernatural. 3 3-pointers in 38 seconds to start the game. That's not normal human behavior. That's video game stuff. The timing couldn't be more suspicious or embarrassing for the league. Clark misses 5 games with a quad injury, comes back against the best team in the league, and immediately reminds everyone why she's the face of professional basketball. Her return wasn't just good, it was historic. The Fever set a franchise record with 17 3-pointers. Clark looked like she never left, and the entire basketball world remembered why they tune in to watch her play. And the league's response? Let's make sure she's not cheating. The optics are so bad, they make the Titanic look like a minor navigation error. You have your biggest star, the player who single-handedly increased viewership and brought mainstream attention to women's basketball, and you treat her like a suspected criminal after her best performance in weeks. The drug testing protocol in the WNBA is supposedly random, but 11 tests for one player in a single season starts looking less random and more like harassment. Other players get tested the required 3 times, maybe 4 if they're unlucky. Clark is apparently getting the premium package, complete with post-game specimen collection after dominant performances.
Keep it down! Go! Yeah! Good job.
No, that we can.
Whew, good job. Squad needed it. Played Fever way. I love it. More of them.
Let's talk about what actually happened in that Liberty game, because the performance was so good it apparently triggered a drug test. Clark came out firing from the opening tip, hitting 3 logo threes in the first quarter that had Breanna Stewart giving her 5 feet of space and still watching the ball go through the net. That's not chemical enhancement, that's pure skill. combined with the kind of confidence that separates superstars from regular players. The genius part of Clark's performance wasn't just the scoring. She orchestrated the entire offense, created open looks for teammates, and made the defending champions look ordinary on their home court. When you watch the tape, it's clear this wasn't luck or some temporary hot streak. This was a basketball masterclass delivered by someone who spent 5 games on the bench studying how to destroy the league's best team. But instead of celebrating this return performance, someone in the WNBA office decided it needed investigation. Because heaven forbid their biggest star actually be legitimately great at basketball. There has to be some explanation beyond talent, work ethic, and basketball IQ for why she makes the game look so easy. The fan reactions tell the story of how tone deaf this decision appears. One comment perfectly captured the absurdity. The WNBA can't believe they finally have a good player. That sentiment reflects what many people are thinking, that the league is so unused to genuine superstar talent that they don't know how to handle it when it shows up. Another user pointed out that Clark gets drug tested more than Angel Reese. Scores points per game, which is both hilarious and mathematically accurate based on recent performances. The comparisons are endless and brutal, each one highlighting how the league's treatment of Clark borders on the absurd. The magic number jokes write themselves. 12 assists in a game must be drugs. Hitting shots from the logo consistently? Definitely suspicious. Making her teammates better just by being on the court? Time for another test. The league has created a situation where excellence automatically triggers investigation.
Congrats on your great performance.
Thanks.
Just want to let you know you have a huge fan base in Hong Kong.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And
hopefully I'll get there one day.
And today, there are 5 Hong Kong fans fly from Hong Kong to
No way.
And,
oh my gosh.
And the hour is 22 hours.
No
Your
way.
number.
Oh
so
my goodness. Well, I wish I could have
just
met
want to say
them.
this, including me.
If you know them, tell them thank you for coming. That's
So-
incredible.
Yeah, so any plans you will visit Hong Kong with your teams in the future years?
Yeah, maybe we'll head to Hong Kong after the season. I mean, I certainly hope to go to Hong Kong one day. It's incredible to see the type of reach that we can have and how much people love basketball across the globe. So that's really cool. So if you know them, tell them I say hello and thanks for coming as well.
Yeah, thank you. Hope one day to show you around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Here's what makes this even more ridiculous. Clark's dominance isn't some sudden emergence that would justify suspicion. She's been doing this since college. The deep threes, the no-look passes, the court vision that seems supernatural. This is just who she is as a player. Anyone who's watched her career knows this level of performance is normal for her when healthy. The drug testing after this particular game sends a message that the league either doesn't understand their own star or doesn't want to believe she's legitimately this good. Neither explanation reflects well on the WNBA's leadership or their ability to recognize and properly support elite talent. What happened against the Liberty wasn't an anomaly. It was Clark returning to her normal level of play after being sidelined. With injury, she reminded everyone that the Fever with Clark are a completely different team than the Fever without her. The offense flows better, teammates get better looks, and suddenly they're competitive with the defending champions. The social media mockery reached peak levels with users suggesting the WNBA is actively trying to sabotage their own product. When your biggest star delivers a performance that should be celebrated league-wide and your response is mandatory drug testing, you've fundamentally misunderstood how to build and market a professional sports league. The comparison to other sports becomes inevitable. When Steph Curry hits 9 3-pointers in a game, the NBA doesn't drug test him, they market the highlights. When someone in the NFL throws for 400 yards, the league celebrates the performance. Only in the WNBA does excellence apparently require chemical analysis. One particularly savage comment noted that Clark has been tested more times than she's been properly marketed by the league, which cuts to the heart of the WNBA's ongoing identity. Crisis. They have a generational talent who brings unprecedented attention to their product, and their response is suspicion rather than celebration. The timing of this revelation makes it even worse. Clark's return game was appointment television. Fans tuned in specifically to see how she'd perform after the injury layoff. The performance exceeded expectations, created viral moments, and generated exactly the kind of positive attention the WNBA desperately needs. And then we find out she got drug tested afterward. The league's drug testing protocol might be officially random, but the optics suggest something more targeted. When the same player repeatedly gets selected for testing, especially after standout performances, it starts looking less like random selection and more like systematic harassment of their biggest star. The irony is that Clark's success should be the WNBA's biggest celebration. Here's a player who draws crowds, increases viewership, sells merchandise, and brings mainstream sports attention to women's basketball. Instead of building their marketing strategy around her talents, they're apparently building their drug testing schedule around her games. The fan comments about this situation reveal how damaging this approach is to the league's reputation. When your audience is mocking your treatment of your biggest star, you've lost control of the narrative. When jokes about drug testing get more engagement than highlights from the actual game, your priorities are seriously misaligned. Social media users didn't hold back in pointing out the absurdity. Comments ranged from jokes about testing for basketball talent to suggestions that maybe the league should test other players to see why they can't match Clark's level of performance. The creativity in mocking this decision has been absolutely relentless. The broader context makes this even more problematic. The WNBA is in the middle of collective bargaining negotiations, trying to increase player salaries and improve working conditions. When stories emerge about your biggest star being subjected to excessive drug testing, it doesn't exactly paint the league in a positive light regarding player treatment. The timing of these tests also raises questions about the league's decision-making process. Clark gets tested after dominant performances, creating the impression that success triggers suspicion. That's exactly the opposite message you want to send to current players or potential future stars. The entertainment value of the social media reactions has been incredible. Users have turned this into a comedy goldmine, with jokes ranging from testing for pure basketball talent to suggestions that Clark should demand to see other players' test results for comparison. The creativity in mocking this decision shows how obviously problematic it appears to outside observers. One user perfectly captured the situation by noting that Clark gets drug tested more frequently than most players get meaningful playing time. That observation highlights both the excessive nature of her testing and the general mediocrity that defines much of the league's talent level. The league's handling of this situation represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how to treat marquee talent. When you have a player who can single-handedly change the trajectory of your sport, you protect and promote them. You don't subject them to constant testing that implies their success is somehow illegitimate. The drug testing revelation also undermines the league's efforts to build credibility around competitive balance. If your best player is constantly being tested because their performance seems too good to be natural, what does that say about the overall level of competition? It suggests either that one player is cheating or that everyone else is significantly worse than they should be. The fan reaction has been overwhelmingly critical of the league's approach, with many pointing out that this treatment of Clark reflects broader issues with WNBA leadership and decision-making. When your audience is unanimously mocking a league decision, it's probably time to reconsider your approach. The most damaging aspect of this entire situation is how it makes the WNBA look amateur compared to other professional sports leagues. Major sports organizations understand that superstar performances drive interest and revenue. They celebrate excellence rather than investigating it. The WNBA's approach suggests they either don't understand this basic principle or actively choose to ignore it. Looking at the comments and reactions, it's clear that fans see this as representative of larger problems with how the league operates. The drug testing becomes a symbol of the WNBA's inability to properly handle and promote their biggest assets. When even casual observers can see the absurdity of the situation, the league has a serious public relations problem on their hands. Let's examine the statistical absurdity of this testing frequency. 11 drug tests in one season for Clark versus the league standard of 3 tests means she's being tested at nearly 4 times the rate of other players. That's not random sampling, that's targeted investigation disguised as routine protocol. The mathematical probability of one player being randomly selected 11 times while others get tested 3 times is so astronomically low that calling it coincidence insults basic intelligence. The performance that triggered this latest test was exactly what fans paid to see. Clark returned from injury looking like she hadn't missed a single practice session. Her shooting form was perfect, her court vision was surgical, and her decision-making was flawless. This is what peak professional basketball looks like, and the league's response was to question its legitimacy. What makes this even more embarrassing is the context of Clark's injury recovery. She spent 5 games on the sideline with a quad strain, working with trainers and medical staff to ensure she returned safely. The idea that she somehow enhanced her recovery or performance through illegal substances is not just insulting to her work ethic, it's insulting to the entire medical team that managed her rehabilitation. The social media commentary has evolved from initial disbelief to outright mockery of league management. Users are creating elaborate jokes about what substances Clark might be using. Performance-enhancing basketball talent became a trending phrase. Someone suggested she's been taking illegal doses of court vision supplements. The creativity in ridiculing this decision shows how universally stupid it appears to anyone with functioning brain cells. The comparison to other players becomes inevitable and brutal. While Clark gets tested 11 times for being too good, other players struggle to make basic shots without any chemical analysis whatsoever. The implication is that success is suspicious, while mediocrity is perfectly natural. That's exactly the opposite message a professional sports league should be sending. The international perspective adds another layer of embarrassment. Clark mentioned fans flying in from Hong Kong to watch her play, highlighting the global reach of her appeal. Now those international fans get to read about how the league drug tests their favorite player for being too talented. Nothing says professional sports organization like treating excellence with suspicion. The timing of this revelation, coming immediately after a dominant return performance, creates the worst possible optics. Instead of headlines celebrating Clark's comeback, we get stories about drug testing protocols and potential harassment. The league managed to turn their biggest positive story of the week into a public relations nightmare. The precedent this sets is dangerous for the league's future. If exceptional performance automatically triggers additional drug testing, what message does that send to young players aspiring to reach elite levels? Work hard, develop your skills, and dominate games, but expect to be treated like a potential cheater if you succeed too much. The fan investment in Clark extends beyond just basketball performance. People have bought jerseys, attended games, and become WNBA followers specifically because of her impact on the sport. When the league treats her like a suspected criminal for delivering exactly the kind of performance that made her famous, it feels like a betrayal of that emotional and financial investment. The coaching staff's perspective on this situation must be fascinating. Imagine trying to manage a team when your best player gets drug tested every time she has a great game. The psychological impact of that constant scrutiny could affect performance and team chemistry. Yet another way this approach backfires on league interests. The business implications are staggering. Clark's presence increases television ratings, ticket sales, and merchandise revenue. When your biggest revenue driver gets subjected to excessive drug testing, you're essentially investigating your own success. The league is paying consultants millions of dollars to figure out how to grow their audience while simultaneously harassing the player who single-handedly solved that problem. The media coverage of this situation has been universally critical of the league's approach. Sports journalists who normally avoid taking sides have openly questioned the logic and fairness of testing Clark at this frequency. When even neutral observers are calling out your decision-making, you've lost the public. Relations battle completely. The Player Association should be furious about this treatment of their most high-profile member. If the league can subject Clark to excessive testing for being too good, what's to stop them from targeting other players for any reason they manufacture? This sets a precedent that undermines player rights and dignity across the entire league. Historical context makes this even worse. Women's sports have always struggled for respect and recognition. When the WNBA finally gets a player who brings mainstream attention and credibility to their product, their response is to question whether that success is legitimate. It's self-sabotage at the highest level. The competitive balance argument falls apart under scrutiny. If Clark's dominance was artificial, other teams would be demanding investigations. Instead, opposing players and coaches acknowledge her talent while expressing frustration about defending against it. That's not suspicious. That's professional recognition of elite ability. The fan community has rallied around Clark in response to this treatment, creating an us versus them mentality between supporters and league management. When your audience is actively rooting against your administrative decisions, you fundamentally misunderstood your role as a sports entertainment organization. The drug testing story has overshadowed actual basketball discussion, which represents a complete failure of league priorities. Instead of analyzing Clark's performance, her development as a second-year professional, or the team's improved chemistry, we're talking about specimen collection protocols. The league has managed to make their biggest star a victim rather than a celebration. This situation perfectly encapsulates the WNBA's ongoing struggle with success. They desperately want mainstream attention and increased revenue, but when they get exactly what they've been asking for, their response is suspicion and investigation. It's like complaining about being hungry and then questioning the quality of food when someone brings you a 5-star meal. The WNBA somehow managed to turn their biggest star's triumphant return into a public relations nightmare. When excellence triggers drug tests instead of celebration, you know something's seriously wrong with league leadership. What's your take on this whole mess? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if you think the league owes Clark an apology, and subscribe for more sports drama that writes itself.